Going, Ian, Rebecca. Really appreciate y'all taking the time.
Oh, you guys are like so like buttoned up and fancy. I mean, Rebecca was just being honored with a huge award last night. So I know they were up late, but she sure doesn't look it. And Brad, you look like you just walked off of like, some like runway from somewhere.
I know. Seriously. Are you here to
And
talk
I
about
was
fashion? Is it Fashion Week?
and I was out moving I was out moving generators at 4:45 this morning because we've been having power outages. So, you know, and I well, at least I look like a farmer.
You look
Uh,
fantastic. What are you talking about? You look fantastic.
guys,
Yeah,
Brad,
there's nothing you can do that like you could, like put dirt on your face and you're still good to go, you know?
You're
hey, I
good to
will
go.
do. Rebecca, remember that Brad, we did a photo shoot where I mean, we did a premiere and Rebecca and I, we had a grass and the red carpet, and Rebecca and I are literally kissing the grass, and people are like, "That's where people are stepping." We're like, "We don't care," like we literally kiss the damn ground, and we got millions of people kissing the ground. But Brad, thanks for having us and being here with us, and looking so suave and spreading this message.
Well, no, like I appreciate y'all taking the time because again, we're talking about Global Earth Day, a watch event that's going on April 22nd. Talking about Kiss the Ground, talking about common ground. And Rebecca, for people who might not know about the documentaries or the cause in general, just can you illuminate us just a little bit about this Global Earth Day watch event?
Thank you. Yes, on Earth Day, April 22nd, coming right up on Amazon Prime, we're going to have our films Kiss the Ground and Common Ground. They're documentaries. They're about how we can stabilize the climate and reverse climate change, basically. But so they're films about dirt, but they're not boring because they've got people like Ian Somerhalder in it, and Jason Momoa, and Rosario Dawson, and Donald Glover,
And
and I mean,
Laura Dern, like,
just like incredible group of people who have come together because when you learn that there's actually great news. When we talk about climate, we talk about the environment, that you don't also hear good news in that sentence, but this is different. This is actually good news because it turns out we're not doomed. There actually is, we have a choice. We don't have to go down that pathway and basically destroy ourselves and worry ourselves to death. Actually, there's a way that we can take all of that carbon that we've put up into the atmosphere, that teraton of carbon, and we can do what's called biosequestration. So we can sequester, draw down that carbon that's creating all of this havoc everywhere, put it back into the soil where it came from. So, and of the land on Earth, of the terrestrial land, 40% of it is agricultural land. So we manage that land. And through shifting some of our farming practices, and I come from a legacy farming family in the Midwest, through shifting some of those practices towards regenerative, organic agricultural practices, we can take all of that carbon, draw it down using photosynthesis into the roots of plants, and grow nutrient dense food and heal microclimates and heal communities that have been so impacted by the detrimental ways that we've been growing our food. And how we grow our food can heal the planet and heal us. So that's in essence what the films are about, but they're entertaining and they're fun and it's an adventure. And we have Ian Somerhalder in it. So
isn't that just so rad to know that we're not doomed?
It's great news. That's great news to hear because I feel like the climate conversation is always, and especially in the last 10 years, 15 years or so has been so politicized. And I'm here in Texas, Houston, Texas. We're an oil and gas, state. There's no doubt about that. And the conversation can shift one way or another, but to me, my stance on climate was like, hey, shouldn't we just like be precautious just in case? Like, I know you could say, oh, I don't know, the science says this, the science says that, but I just feel like as good, everyday citizens, like let's just be cautious and let's be mindful of this, no matter where we live and no matter, what our political affiliations may be or ideologies on the climate change crisis or what have you. I just feel like we should be open to it. And the fact that there is good news out there, that's good to hear because we just hear the ticking clock, the doomsday clock.
Exactly. And also too, man, so I spent a lot of time in Houston. I'm from New Orleans. So Josh and I actually went to the same high school. Louisiana is a big oil and gas
Yeah.
state. And one of the things is, listen, down the line, our economies will decarbonize eventually, but the reality of it is why are we bludgeoning ourselves over the head, fighting one another, dividing our society, and trying to wreck our economies? People think if they drive an electric car and they use paper straws, they're going to save the planet, and it's just simply not the case, right? What Rebecca mentioned is there's a teraton. It's called a legacy load of carbon up in the air, and that's just from burning stuff over the last, since the dawn of humankind. All we have to do is draw that down. But what Rebecca's saying is we have a plan, we have a process and a pathway to basically eat pretty much every damn molecule of carbon we produce and just put it in the soil. Now, what happens with that is this massive positive cascade. And we don't have to destroy our economies. Why are people talking about building carbon dioxide scrubbers when we can just use intelligent, smart agricultural practices, right? Because people always say, well, what the hell is this regenerative agriculture? Why should I care? Super simple, so quick. Regen ag is just the use of planned grazing methods, right? And using living, growing plants, agriculture, but at scale to sequester all that carbon, put it back in the ground where it belongs. That black, beautiful, dense soil, you know what that is? That's carbon. And so when farmers till that soil to get that dark carbon, what are they doing? They're releasing carbon. So the one thing that we want to keep in the ground, we put into the atmosphere again when we mismanage our land. And so what the films show you is by not doing that, we can sequester all that carbon, put it back in the ground, and build this giant, robust agricultural economy. And guess what? I will tell you, we spend enough time in Washington, and yes, I read all the news cycle. It's all doom and gloom. Well, guess what? These developing nations are going to do the same thing we did, right? And China, which is not developing at all, but they're still going to burn coal. Guess what? India is still going to burn coal. Countries are going to do what they have to do to survive and build. Well, instead of fighting each other and destroying our economies here, why don't we just eat all that carbon and stop fighting each other and destroying our economies? We're going to be okay. And that is what is so amazing. That is that thing that brings us together. And that's why the film is called Common Ground, because in such a divided society, the soil is our common ground. When you tell people that, I spent a lot of time on the road with Texas oil guys and Indiana farmers. You know, oh my gosh, Rebecca, Rick Clark just sent these photos of this hundreds of acres of certified, regenerative organic rye that we're growing for Brothers Bond. Brothers Bond rye is right here.
Woo!
We're growing this on Rick Clark's farm, and Rick Clark and Gabe Brown are some of the incredible stars of our film. Um, I'm growing regenerative rye in Western Indiana as we speak on Rick Clark's amazing farm. And like 186,000 pounds of it just got sent to some malting facilities for our rye. No one's doing this. No one is. But we're about to start. And when you realize you can sequester carbon with a plant and you don't need some fancy BS machine, and we don't have to fight each other and beat the left says this and the right says this and the center says this and purple, gold, red, orange. I don't care who you are or what you do. This is the way we fix it. Bam.
Just sitting here listening to y'all, I'm being honest with you. I'm getting excited. Like I'm
Yeah.
excited right now to
Yes.
hear this because, well, but because I don't hear these conversations. I don't hear enough about these conversations, let me say. And Rebecca, just going off of what Ian says, what do you think is like the biggest, I guess, misnomer or the biggest misunderstanding when it comes to green, the quote unquote green conversations, this regenerative science? I don't hear enough about that. I hear about, again, the political philosophies. Electric cars are good. No, they're bad. Nuclear energy is cleaner than gas. I don't know. I'm just a regular guy. I'm just
Yeah.
a regular guy trying to live. I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing day to day. So what do you feel is the biggest misconception that we have when it comes to this conversation. I think we
Um,
lost her.
oh, hold on, wait, here I am. Hold on, wait, here I am. Hold on. Here I am.
There you go.
Here I am.
There you
Okay.
are.
So thank you. So some of the biggest misconceptions are that, well, first of all, that there's no hope. That's the biggest
Yeah.
misconception. Also that like we're too divided. So I come from a legacy farming family from the Midwest. My dad has very different political views from me. And you can imagine what our Thanksgivings are like when we have these conversations. And then here I am coming in saying, I'm making these documentaries about regenerative farming. And so my dad is like, what do you know about farming, little girl? You know, because I come from people who really have been doing this for generations. And so at least we're doing it the industrial way. So my family wasn't doing it the regenerative way. They were doing it and they were degrading that soil and the land that they cared so much about. And so I think the misnomer is that we're not going to find that common ground and that we're too different from each other and that there's nothing that we can do. It's too late. That's the misnomer. And the good news is with these films, we have discovered that we actually have way more in common than we realize, and that people from different political views, from different worlds, can come together around this issue because we all breathe the same air. We all eat food from the same earth, and we have so much that we can do to alter our course if we just find that common ground and we start working together. And so now my dad sends me photos every year of his regenerative organic produce, and never saw that coming because he never told me I was right. I never had that conversation. However, he's growing regenerative and organic food, and we can still agree to disagree on so many things. But the one thing that we can all agree on is that if we all do our part, we can change this together, and we have a choice, and we can have an incredible future with abundant food. Farmers can make a ton of money. That's
Ton
the other
of money.
thing. Like people don't realize, I think if they do regeneration, it's more expensive and that farmers are going to go bankrupt. The opposite is true. Farmers can make a ton of money through switching to regeneration because of the biodiversity. And so, and because of the healthy environment, I mean, that's how you create abundance, and yield is through biodiversity, not through a monocrop and spraying poisons on the earth. So yeah, I think it's also easy.
Brad, can I
Yes.
to Rebecca's point, can I run some of the numbers by you really quickly?
Would love to hear it.
So Texas is a big ag state, right?
Yes.
Actually, what do you mean? I was just in Dallas like a couple days ago. But since then, I've also been to Atlanta and to Knoxville back. As of by Friday, I will have my third red eye of the week, right? But really moving this message. So people always say, like, what the hell? Hi, buddy. Love you, kid. People always say, well, what the hell is regenerative agriculture? Hi,
Right.
cutie pie. Oh, I love those munchkins. People always say, what the hell is regenerative agriculture and why should I care? And it's like, yo, this is the easiest thing. Regenerative agriculture is just the use of planned grazing methods and using living, growing plants, agriculture, but at scale to sequester enormous amounts of carbon and store it safely back in the ground where it belongs. Rebecca will tell you, 40% of the terrestrial land in the world is farmland, right? So if we manage that properly, we can not only just build robust agricultural economies, but we can do that one thing that no one wants to talk about, balance the climate. Now imagine making hundreds of billions of dollars a year globally in a carbon capture food economy with robust agricultural economies, thriving communities, skyrocketing health, human health. But while everyone's making money and balancing the climate, what else do you want? So check this out. So obviously I make whiskey, right? And my wife and I have an amazing vitamin company, the Absorption Company. And so these are all agricultural products, right? But let's talk about whiskey for a second. Grains. We use a lot of grains. In this country, let's just say production acre wise, there's about 200 million acres. Well, regenerative agriculture saves about $400 an acre. So if you were to multiply 200 million times $400, that's 80 billion a year that we
Wow.
send to foreign countries of American farmers' money that they had to borrow from a bank. This system does not work. So imagine reversing that system. We stop sending, you want to talk about balance of trade. In DC, that's a big word. And it also is in the capital there in Texas. There's your balance of trade. Once we do that and start injecting 50, 80 billion dollars back into middle America, well, dude, that's the reindustrialization of middle America. Farmers all of a sudden have all this money, tax bases go up, school districts get better, water districts get better, after school programs get implemented. Like sports teams have more cash to focus and keep kids, on the right track and working as a team. I mean, dude, this is huge scalable change. And what Josh and Rebecca have done have built this unbelievable pathway with our teeny tiny mighty team around the world to basically show through Kiss the Ground and Common Ground that not only is this all possible, it's not even probable. It's happening right now. And you can be a part of it, meaning farmers are like, wait, you mean I can be profitable? I don't have to go to a bank and grovel every year for money to be on the drip of these agrochemical companies and be sick from spraying all these toxic chemicals. You mean I get to drive a new truck that actually has heat? Because in Texas, it can get pretty cold. You're telling me that my kids can go to great schools and that I can take my wife and my kids to dinner once a week, not once a month? I mean, it makes you want to cry. And you realize, like,
Yeah.
yes, not only is this happening, it can happen to you right now. And so to make that shift to regenerative agriculture just takes a couple phone calls with your community and going on the website to find out what those access those resources, and then go to your local community and have those conversations and say, hey, why are we not as a community doing this? Because we can all make a ton of money and we can actually just be healthier. Well, dude, there's your answer. It's unbelievable. We can eat every molecule of carbon we produce every year just by managing our land better.
I mean, it's really sensational. Again, y'all are getting me excited thinking about this because my grandfather's family's from Damon, Texas. It's a farming town, an hour and a half north of where I am, where it's sugarcane fields, it's corn fields, it's rice fields. And yes, I know, and Rebecca, I'm sure you're familiar, and Ian, you alluded to it, just going to getting that ag loan every year, going and trying to get the money just to be able to operate your farm. And hopefully you get into the black and you're not in the red and you're not paying too much interest on that ag loan. And to me, like what you're saying, of like having the nice truck, taking the family out to dinner, doing all those small little things that we take for granted at times, maybe in big city life or what have you, being able to give that back to the farmers is incredible. So Rebecca, here's my question: how do we get this in mass? I know we're doing the live stream, we're doing the documentaries. I'm excited. I'm going to tell all my people about this as soon as we're done. I'm going to do
Thanks,
all
bro.
kinds of more research into regenerative agriculture because it's now fascinating me. But how do we get this to the next level? How do we spread it nationwide and then worldwide?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is we need to get 10% of our land transitioned ASAP into regenerative organic agriculture, because that's how we reach the tipping point. That's when everything then starts to go this direction. So we have to get to 10%.
So what are those numbers, sister?
So it's 100 million acres in North
Okay.
America, and it's a billion acres globally. And so the goal with Common Ground is to get to 100 million acres in the US, and we're already at 50 million. And the goal globally is to do 1 billion acres. And so, everybody, let's start talking about this because it doesn't have to be a depressing conversation anymore. It can be one about profitability. It can be one about, regeneration of every aspect of our life. And so share the movie, share the message, go on commongroundfilm.org and sign up to watch the watch party with us with all of the celebrities that are in the film. We've got Ian Somerhalder here. I mean, that's worth it just to come in to hang out with him. I mean, if you listen to him talk, it's like, who knew that somebody this good looking also was so incredibly intelligent? Oh my gosh. And so maybe even more intelligent than good looking. And I didn't know if that was
Oh man,
possible. My husband won't mind that I'm
I
saying.
love you. Oh, because he's my brother. We're family.
Anyway, watch Kiss the Ground. Watch Common Ground on Earth Day, April 22nd on
Share it.
Prime. Share it with everybody you know. Start talking about this. Let's start talking about regeneration instead of avoiding it or being like resigned and cynical. Let's start talking about the pathway for solutions and how we can all take part in regenerating our own ecosystems. Because when we all start doing that and our little microclimates, that's how
Start
we
changing.
the macro climate. So each one of us has the opportunity to change our microclimate, even if it's just yourself in your own home, or maybe it's your community, whatever your role is, we all have a role to play. And you can find out what that is and get inspired by watching Kiss the Ground and Common Ground on Earth Day, on Prime, commongroundfilm.org.
.org. It's
commongroundfilm.org. Look, I love movies, I love television, but I also love having conversations about how we can all do our part and how we can be a stronger, uh, more united, not only country but globally. How we can all come together to look after one another and look forward to the future. And this is what I think this conversation's done. I'm going to be talking about this the rest of the day. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Brad, thank you.
The rest of your life, Brad, the
The
rest
rest
of
of the
Brad,
life,
well,
the rest of my life.
but Brad, can I, and again, I'm not trying to sound like crass or dismissive. What you just said was so special because the the US conversation is huge, but it's every continent, pretty much except
Yeah,
Antarctica. Um, but money talks, BS walks. If you
sure.
tell a farmer, whether they're in India or Indiana, that they can be profitable and they can be healthy and they can feed their families and their communities and balance the climate all at the same time, there is no case for any congressional lawmaker or any lawmaker globally to reap the benefits from taking money from agrochemical companies and not sharing that and suppressing this type of regenerative agriculture to those communities for their own financial benefit. That time is over. Lawmakers are no longer going to be able to take all this agrochemical companies' money while people aren't looking. We are looking. And by you spreading that message and talking to people, they're going to become aware of this and they're not going to stand for it. And so I think once that starts happening in South and Central America, North America, Australia, Europe, Asia, you're talking Africa. Oh my gosh, this is enormous. And that's why Rebecca and Josh and I are so excited, and our team obviously are so excited to share this because at the end of the day, money talks, BS walks. Regenerative agriculture makes people money by saving them money. And they all of a sudden, their lives change and their communities change. Oh, and another side note of that is the climate balances. Oh, and there's hundreds of billions of dollars to be used globally. I mean, this is huge, dude.
Yeah. And it's also
This,
freedom. It's freedom because farmers, their bank loans that lock them into these
yeah.
practices. It locks them
They're
into
handcuffed.
and they have literally become debt serfs to pay off loans. And then they're
Yep.
required to grow only one crop so that they can get the subsidy. And maybe they don't even grow one crop. They just get the subsidy because of climate, we're having different climate situations. And so I think farmers want to be free of those chains.
They want that resilient. They want to be resilient. And also, too, by the way, look at what Texas,
Mhm.
you know, you just mentioned those crop loans.
Yeah.
Rebecca's family, my family, I come from we're one of the only, my brother and I actually, and my dad's family, we're the only pieces of our family who aren't large scale farmers, because that's where I come from too, multi generations. My uncle, who was the rich farmer of the family, little did I know every month, every year they were going and borrowing all that money. So the optics were that, he had planes and crop dusters and twin engine planes, and that's where my love of flying came from. But they borrowed all that money. And I hate to say this, they're all now, unfortunately, gone. As of last year, they've died
Oh, I'm
from
sorry.
excessive exposure to what? Chemicals. He was the crop duster. They had the chemical distribution company. My cousins want to kill me, but their health is all messed up. So I come from that land as well. And those ag loans, well, guess what? Like what happened to Gabe Brown, when the weather shifts and is really bad, it's unpredictable. What happens? You lose those crops. And now you're saddled with that debt. whether your crop insurance paid for all of that, again, like Rebecca mentioned, you're now in the cycle and you're handcuffed. And farmers get that, they become resilient and they become free. And for us, that is what we want. Because at the end of the day, all I want to do eventually is retire and just go back to being a farmer, like my family and my family's family and my family's family before that, just like Rebecca's. So this is an amazing way to do it. And here we go.
Let's do it.
There it is. We're going to do it. commongroundfilm.org. Ian, Rebecca, I really appreciate you taking the time to spread this message this morning. And Ian, I do have to tell you, this is a true statement. I've said it before. I'm a fan of your film and television work, your acting. You and Robert Downey Jr. are the two most effortless actors I've ever seen on screen. And I mean that. Just the way that you're able to command the camera is truly special. So again, I appreciate y'all for joining me this morning. Really appreciate your time.
Aw. Thanks, Brad. Ian's the real deal, by the way, in real life. That's just who he is and how he rolls. Just like that. I agree. He's amazing.
All right.
Nice to meet you,
Y'all
Brad.
have a good one.